Some nights don't wait. They don't ask questions. They just burn. A message sent too fast, a reply that takes too long. And somehow, two strangers end up in the same city light, moving through smoke and neon, as if this night was waiting just for them. Welcome to Men Being Too Intimate, an audio story series exploring what happens when two men blur the emotional lines between boldness and restraint, between heat and hesitation, between what's meant to last and what isn't. Tonight's story takes us to Taipei, where an ESTP, hungry, never still, and an ISTP, quiet, grounded, harder to read. Meet by chance or maybe by impulse. No forever, no promises. Just the kind of night that leaves its glow long after dawn. This is Men Being Too Intimate. One night only. Chun's body still thrummed from the gym. Muscles drawn tight, lungs stretched clean, the faint ache of exertion alive under his skin. It should have been enough. He'd put in the hours, finished the sets, even felt that brief, sharp satisfaction when his last rep locked. Routine complete. But Taipei refused to let the night end. He could feel it pressing at the edges of his stride, the humidity sticking to his skin, the sweet-sour perfume of fruit stalls blending with the sharper burn of fried chili oil. Lanterns swayed above the market alley, bright red against low clouds, while neon signs argued with each other in colors that painted the rain-dark pavement. A group spilled out of a karaoke bar behind him, voices rising in slurred harmony. One friend pulled another into the street, nearly colliding with a scooter that shot by, horn blaring. Their laughter scattered upward, bold, reckless, alive. Jun slowed at the corner, watching them disappear into the market crowd. For a moment, he almost turned away, almost convinced himself that this wasn't his night. He'd done his part already, earned his fatigue. A shower, a meal, a few hours of scrolling, then sleep. That was enough. That was safe. Except walking home felt wrong. Too quiet, too unfinished. The gym had emptied his muscles, but not his restlessness. Beneath the ache, something else lingered, a need the treadmill couldn't touch. His phone lit against his hand, a notification. Jun hesitated only long enough to feel the pause. Then the screen unlocked. The app slid open like muscle memory. Faces, bodies, names blurred from nights before. Swipe left, swipe right. Quick decisions made without thought. It was a game he knew too well. Fast, empty, predictable. But tonight, the buzz in his chest told him to keep going. That something waited in the pool of neon ahead. He pulled his hoodie wider at the collar, breath slowing, thumb flicking down the feed. One more glance. One more maybe. Neon lit his skin as he sent the images out, faceless bodies waiting on the other side. It wasn't satisfaction he felt, it was the pulse of something unfinished. The night wasn't done. Not yet. Wei let the noise settle around them like weather. The table carried its own storm. Friends talking over each other, laughing at stories that had already been told too many times, voices rising just to keep pace with the market's roar. Someone slammed a glass onto the table for emphasis, beer spilling over the rim. Another leaned back in a chair too far, almost toppling, caught by the chorus of shouts before they steadied. Wei laughed when expected, smiled when someone nudged his arm, lifted his glass when Gambai rang out, even though the toast was for something he'd already forgotten. The beer was warm by the time it touched his lips. He wasn't unhappy here. This was familiar, the same two friends, the same alley bar, the same routine of weekend nights measured in empty plates and louder voices. But familiarity had a weight, and tonight it pressed harder than usual. The air was thick with oil smoke and incense drifting from a nearby shrine. Scooters tore through the alley mouth, headlights carving quick silver lines. Wei found his eyes following them, the way they slipped into the night with no pause, no permission. He wondered fleetingly what it might feel like to let himself move like that. His phone lay face down on the table, the glass sweating into its screen. He ignored it until the buzz came, a vibration against metal, quick, insistent. His hand turned it over before he thought about it. Another picture, another stranger flexing. Wei exhaled, almost a laugh. The language was obvious, practiced. A code he understood but never used. It belonged to people who wanted to be wanted quickly, who spoke in images instead of words. He set the phone back down, face angled toward the street again. His friends were still arguing over whose story was funnier, whose voice carried furthest. Their laughter rose and fell in waves. Wei let it wash over him the way he always did. But tonight, instead of sinking, he felt something tug. A pause he couldn't name. And before he could stop himself, his eyes drifted back to the screen. Jun stopped under a sign buzzing pink against the night. The heat of his workout hadn't faded. Sweat cooled along his chest as he tugged his hoodie higher, Abe's cut sharp under the glow. He angled the phone, tilted his chin, and clicked. The screen froze, a version of himself, sweat-sheened, hungry, restless. The caption wrote itself. "This is me now." He grinned as he hit send. Jun knew the game. He'd sent versions of this photo to strangers, for more skin, more muscle, more quick escalations, that usually ended before morning. It was the shorthand of the night. Flex, respond, repeat. The alley was alive the way Taipei always was on a Saturday night, smoke hurling from grills. Vendors shouting 2 for 50. Scooter horns blaring as riders threaded impossibly through crowds. But Wei sat at the small metal table as if it was an island in the flood. His friends were louder than the market itself. Noise was the point. Wei wasn't bored, just distant. This was what he knew. Noise around him, silence inside. On the table, his phone buzzed once. He ignored it. It buzzed again, rattling faintly against the metal. Wei sighed, flipped it over, thumb sliding the screen open. Another body pic flexed hard under neon light. Caption: "This is me now." Wei huffed under his breath, almost a laugh. And then, "Bro, what the hell?" A hand snatched the phone before he could move. One of his friends, grinning too wide, screen already tilted toward him. "You're just gonna leave this? Look at him, he's hot." Wei jolted upright, nearly spilling his beer. "Give it back." His voice cut sharper than he meant. The other friend was already laughing, clapping the table, skewers rattling. "Oh my god, don't be such a grandpa, Wei. Just one night, what's the harm?" Wei reached across, but his friend leaned back, thumbs flying over the glass. "They're done, sent." Wei's stomach dropped. "What did you—" His own voice cut off as the friend read the line aloud with a mocking lilt. "Why don't you come join me?" The table roared. One friend slapped his back. The other leaned so far across he nearly knocked into a passing scooter. The market swallowed their laughter, made it part of its own. Wei groaned, pressing a hand over his face. His friends always did this, pushed him, teased him, treated his silence like an empty canvas to scribble over. He usually let it slide. But tonight, the phone still glowed in his friend's hand, that stranger's photo open, the message carrying his name. And for the first time, Wei felt heat, not from the beer, not from the alley, but from the possibility of what had just been set into motion without his consent. June had 3 chats open at once, his thumb flicking fast across the screen. Faces, bodies, promises, all of them blurred. It was a game. And he was good at it. But tonight none of them landed. He walked slower now, neon dripping into puddles at his feet. The bass from a nearby club rattled through the pavement, thumping into his ribs. He wanted noise, heat, distraction. He wanted proof the night wasn't wasted. And then his phone buzzed. It was an image of beer glasses with caption, "Why don't you come join me?" Jun barked a laugh under his breath, head tipping back at the absurdity. "Yeah, no," he muttered, more to himself than the screen. "Not here for that." His thumbs typed fast, blunt. The crowd pressed around him as he kept walking, one eye on the glow of his screen. Another line flashed. "I don't either." Jun slowed. For the first time that night, his stride faltered. The words were too simple, too direct, cutting through the noise. No pose. No game. And then the map pin dropped. With the caption, "I'll be waiting, hottie." Jun stared at it, thumb hovering. The air around him thickened. The oil smoke from a nearby grill caught in his throat. The incense from a small shrine curled faintly sweet beneath the stink of garbage left by the curb. The humid night clung like a second skin. This wasn't routine anymore. This wasn't the game. Someone had shifted the rules. Jun tilted his head, a grin edging back onto his mouth. "All right." And he checked the pin map, short walk from here. And for the first time all night, curiosity pulled stronger than habit. Wei lunged across the table, voice sharper than he intended. "You seriously pretended to be me? Delete that!" His friend only leaned further back, holding the phone out of reach like a toy, grinning, smug. "Too late. Sent. If he comes, he comes." The second friend was already laughing, the sound bubbling up like he'd been waiting all night for this moment. He clinked his glass against Wei's, sloshing beer onto the table. "Relax. Live through it for once." Wei sat back hard, chair scraping the stone. His hand wrapped tighter around the sweating glass, condensation sliding down onto his palm. His heart knocked once against his ribs, more from humiliation than anger. He hated that heat in his chest, the kind that had nothing to do with the beer. He groaned under his breath, pressed a hand to his face. They weren't malicious. Just drunk, restless, the way friends always were. They pushed because he let them. Because he played the steady one, the calm one, the anchor. They laughed because they knew he wouldn't storm off. But this wasn't a joke he wanted. Not tonight. Wei forced himself to laugh along, a dry sound that bought him cover. But his eyes kept sliding toward the street. The market swirled with bodies. A family herding children past a skewer stand. A group of teenagers shouting over a claw machine, couples weaving in and out of lantern glow. And somewhere in that crush, someone might already be moving toward him. He hated that he thought it. Hated that his pulse ticked higher at the idea. Hated that the photo on his phone had stayed longer in his mind than it should have. His friend shoved the device back into his hand. Screen still glowing. Wei closed it fast, tucking it face down by his glass. His friends laughed again, returning to their stories, voices already chasing the next punchline. But Wei couldn't shake the shift in the air. The table was the same messy, loud, predictable. And yet something had already changed. Jun followed the pin into the crowd, each step sinking him deeper into Taipei's night. Lanterns glowed like low moons above his head. Oil smoke curled thick from the grills, carrying pepper and soy and something faintly sweet that stuck to his skin. Vendors shouted, scooters cut through too close, a child squealed at a game booth's flashing lights. And then he saw them. A table wedged under the lanterns. Two loud friends leaning into each other's noise. And between them, one man who wasn't laughing. Denim jacket, glass in hand, eyes drawn sharp under the neon. Jun slowed, hoodie slipping open another inch as if to announce him before he spoke. He let the smirk rise, lazy and deliberate, and stopped at the table's edge. "So, which one of you sent the invite?" he asked, voice cutting into the laughter. The noise thinned just long enough for Wei to lean toward his friend, jaw tight. His voice was low, clipped. "Tell him it was you." But his friend only grinned wider, refusing the lifeline. He shoved a chair back with a scrape, metal legs grating stone. "Nah, bro, he's yours tonight. Sit down." The second friend whooped, raising his glass high. "Yeah, have fun, bro." The table roared again, swallowing Wei's protest whole. Jun laughed with them, easy unbothered. He dropped into the chair without hesitation, close enough to feel the heat rising off Wei's shoulder. He leaned back, letting the crowd's chaos fold around him like a jacket that fit too well. Jun stretched his legs under the table, eyes sliding toward Wei. Amused, curious, dangerous. For the first time all night, something in his chest sparked, not from the app, not from the swipes, but from this man sitting silent in the center of the noise. One wasn't looking, one almost didn't come, but now... The night had already shifted. The table ran hot with noise, beer breath, and stories. A toast flew, and Jun lifted his glass without asking what for. The lantern light sharpened the damp at his collarbone. He caught it with a knuckle and grinned as if the city had been waiting its turn. Next to him, Wei held still, the way a quiet road holds night present. Steady, not inviting traffic and getting it anyway. Another plate landed, lamb skewers glossy with glaze. June turned the stick so the sheen faced Wei. It was mindless courtesy, easy as breath, but it softened something that wasn't supposed to soften. Wei waited out the steam and bit. Heat bloomed. He coughed once and laughed at himself. Jun smiled like he'd planned it. For a moment, Wei forgot the phone, the pin, and the friend's hands that had typed for him. When the next wave of laughter broke away from them, Jun took the quiet like a path. He leaned in and, with a voice that never pretended to be shy, said he'd noticed Wei wasn't much of a talker. Wei let a half-smile lift small, unwilling, true. He told Jun someone had to balance him out. It was a short exchange that lasted longer than the words. Chun's eyes kept the moment. Wei looked past him and failed to look away. Two skewer sticks tapped the plate nearly in unison, Chun's by ease, Wei's by accident, and the tiny sink banged louder inside them than any toast. The table shed its orbiters. One friend was already headlining a different group. The other vanished down a bright corridor of signs, promising to return with napkins and returning with none in his history. Noise didn't disappear. It just moved aside. What remained was the particular sound of two people who are almost alone. Jun rolled his glass between his palms. He told Wei the food photo had been a bold answer. Wei said it wasn't him who texted. Jun laughed softly. The real kind. The kind that doesn't sell. Then he said, in a voice that landed where it aimed, that he was here. Wei held his gaze for the first time. It wasn't yes. It wasn't no. It was the open door between them, and it was enough. Jun tipped his head toward the dark street and asked, gentle, certain, whose place. Wei said his was less than 10 minutes. Jun laughed once, pleased, said his was far, said that settled it. Jun asked if Wei had condoms. The way some people ask the time. Wei said yes without theater. A buzz in Wei's pocket. One line from a friend who filled air for sport. Go wild tonight. Wei smiled into his throat and pocketed the screen without replying. Jun walked half a step ahead because he's built that way. Wei matched him because he chose to. For Jun, the night finally had direction. For Wei, it had weight. The city did the pulling. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Their shoes made the only rhythm. Now and then, a scooter swerved close. The air split sharp, then disappeared back into the night. Jun let his gaze wander. By the time they reached Wei's building, the quiet was heavier. Wei fumbled briefly with his keys, the metal clinking sharp in the silence. Jun leaned against the wall beside him, close enough for their shoulders to brush when Wei shifted. Wei unlocked the door, but didn't push it open right away. He hesitated, fingers on the handle, head dipped, as if weighing whether this step was one too far. Jun tilted his head, grin small, voice low. What? You planning to keep me in the hallway? Wei didn't answer with words. He pushed the door open, slipped inside, and left it there, half open, waiting. Jun followed. Jun stepped inside like order didn't exist. His shoes landed with a careless push. His bag dropped heavy against the couch. Jun reached for Wei and tugged him. The touch was casual, but it left heat between them. They stopped there, facing each other in the lamplight, close enough for the shadows of their lashes to cross their cheeks. Neither moved first until Jun did. Always Jun. The kiss landed without ceremony. Straight, hungry. Wei stiffened, only for a heartbeat, then gave way, his hand fisting in Chun's hoodie, pulling him closer as if to steady himself. Breath deepened. Fabric shifted. Jackets peeled back, hoodies tugged loose, denim thudded against the floor. Every sound landed louder in the small space. Jun laughed into Wei's mouth-low, sharp fire threaded through it. Wei didn't answer with words. His reply was the grip at Chun's hip, hard enough to steer him back toward the couch. They stumbled, hit the edge, nearly toppled. Books rattled against the shelf. Neither cared. They broke just enough to breathe. Foreheads pressed, both of them gasping like the room was short on air. Jun whispered, quick, direct, the way he asked for everything. Condom? Wei hesitated only long enough to move. A drawer slid. The foil glinted in lamplight. Jun snatched it with a grin, tore it open with his teeth, and laughed against Wei's mouth like it was all one motion. The sound was small, just foil and breath, but it cracked the room open. Their breath loud against the quiet walls. What came after wasn't followed. Not in words. Not in detail. Only the sound of heat. Two men tangled. The city's noise pressing faintly at the glass. The night had no promises, no tomorrows waiting at the edge. But here, in Wei's small apartment, with Chun's laughter still catching in his mouth, it was enough. Wei's apartment was small, but it carried the weight of someone who cared. Books stood in straight lines, spines unbroken. A plant leaned toward the window, leaves glossy and tended. The couch was squared, a throw folded sharp, the kind of detail only someone who lived alone would keep precise. It wasn't decorated so much as kept. A room made steady. A room made quiet. Jun hadn't noticed before. He hadn't noticed anything except Wei's mouth, Wei's body, the urgency that pushed them through the door. But now he took in the surroundings, amused, like he'd stumbled into something he wasn't meant to see. Wei felt it, the pause, the glance. For a heartbeat, it was almost enough to believe Jun saw him, not just his body, but the way he lived. Jun closed the distance, caught Wei in one more kiss, direct and unhesitating. It landed hot, pulling Wei back into the want before he could stop it. His hand gripped Jun as if he could keep him there. Jun grinned against his mouth, and then he pulled away. Always Jun. He dressed quick, the sounds loud in the small space. Wei stayed where he was, sheets slipping lower, skin cooling too fast, watching him with words pressed tight in his throat. At the door, Jun turned once, not a goodbye. Not a promise, just a smile. And then the lock clicked, and the city's hum filled the quiet room. The room was quiet again, too quiet. The sheets still carried heat, but the air had thinned, hollow now that Jun was gone. Wei sat there a long moment, bare skin cooling too fast, staring at the closed door as if silence might reverse it. He pulled on his briefs, the elastic snapping against his hip. His hands dragged down his face before he pushed himself up, crossing to the kitchen. The fridge door creaked. Cold water poured into a glass. He drank it in long swallows, as if it might steady him, as if it might wash Jun out of his chest. On the floor, half hidden under the couch, his phone was there. He picked it up and opened it. Chun's body. Chun's line, "This is me now." Wei stared at it, thumb hovering over the keyboard. One message pressed against his mind. Had fun. 2 words that might have reached across the silence. 2 words he almost sent. But he didn't. He locked the screen instead, the glow vanishing into dark. The city hummed faint beyond the glass. His own breath filled the room. And Wei let the night end alone. Some nights burn bright and vanish just as fast. The ESTP, reckless, restless, chasing heat. The ISTP, quiet, steady, holding back more than he showed. Neither asked for forever, but neither will forget. Because sometimes it isn't about tomorrow. It's only about the night. Neon against the dark, breath against silence. A memory that lingers, just long enough to ache. This was men being too intimate. One night only.
Men being too intimate.